And that's HuskerOnline, Sean Callahan. Sean, good morning. Welcome to a new time slot on Early Break.
I really advanced up. I got the promotion. I'm
you did.
Excited to be a part of the 8 o'clock hour after many, many years of the before school drop off. Now the drop off's done, and I'm sitting outside Orange Theory where I know Bill's wife Laura goes to, and getting ready for the 8:30 class to get my butt kicked.
Do you have
Sean's going to get ripped up? Nice.
You don't have so your hard out would be 8:30 because that's when it begins, right?
Yeah, ideal. I mean, a little before 8:30, so I can stretch it for. But we're in good shape here. We're not as rushed because I have another radio deal in Omaha that always kind of gets me off. So we've got a little bit more time to have a conversation. How about that?
We do.
Yes.
Yeah, Sean, Bill was talking last segment about kind of just longing for signing day. It used to be right now. It is signing day still, but this is not the big deal. Now it's December. Do you miss when February was the big signing day, Sean?
I do. I mean, my career kind of began at that moment and did a lot of, that was the beginning of what I started covering. And I have a lot of memories from those days and the big recruiting events and dinners in Omaha that I can always remember. There was probably 4 or 5 years in a row where they would have the signing day thing, and then the coaches would go to Omaha, and Dean Kratz and the Big Red Breakfast crew would put on an event with over 1,000 people that would attend, and the coaches would break down the film, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a different era. But yeah, the early signing day, once we went to December, and I believe that was when Scott Frost first got here in 2018. That was the first, it would have been December of 2017. I believe that's when it started. And, we've kind of lost the February signing day from that point on. We're pushing 7-8 years of this now with December, but the portal to me is really taken away from what we've known as signing day. I just from my gauge, I feel like there's more excitement for big portal additions necessarily than high school players, because portal additions are probably guys that are going to come in and start for your team. So that has almost become what the recruiting excitement builds around as much as the high school recruiting.
Isn't that interesting? It's all about immediacy. I mean, immediacy. So you attach the word immediacy to Rocco Spindler, right? Because he's going to come in and probably affect your program right away. Could you put in perspective Nebraska's acquisition of Rocco Spindler, the offensive guard from Notre Dame?
Well, they were extremely aggressive. There's no question. He was the best available player at that point in the portal. So the market was high for him. We know Michigan, Indiana, Pittsburgh, and Virginia, along with Nebraska, were in a position to make significant offers to Rocco Spindler because they all needed a lineman. Nebraska at one point, it looked very promising. He comes in. But then he was going to take more trips. And, what we had learned in the portal in the last year is if you don't lock them up right kind of when they're in Lincoln, the chances of getting them get harder. And he was going to Pittsburgh and Virginia, and he potentially was going to visit Michigan. So at that point, you're like, man, I don't know if Nebraska's in a great spot here, especially when you heard some of the numbers that were being thrown out there. But credit Matt Rule, credit Nebraska's NIL commitment. They got done what needed to get done. And it wasn't obviously just about the money. I mean, they had to sell and show him the vision of what this is going to be. And they were able to get a 23-game starter for a team that played for the national championship. I mean, that's a home run addition from the transfer portal.
Sean, regarding money, now Sip admitted a mistake here.
I did.
He said it's okay. Now he said
I did.
Everyone's making $100,000 in NIL, which Sip said, and you pushed back on that, Sean. What
he didn't push back. He just said that's not true. Yeah, so I guess he pushed back in that regard.
What is true, Sean, regarding the amount of money the guys are getting with the roster?
Well, there's multiple pots, and let's call the rev share pot itself like 14 to 16 million, probably. Let's just say 15 million. So you've got that money.
Okay.
Then you've got the money that 1890 can do on top of that on the side.
Okay.
And keep in mind that 14, 15, 16 million doesn't start till July. So any deal that Nebraska is putting together right now that has that money tied to it, 1890 might actually have to be paying some of that money right now until Nebraska can begin paying in July. Because Nebraska right now can't actually technically pay rev share. But yeah, I think there's just going to be different tiers of players on your roster. What I want to zone in on, guys, is the 57-man roster. I think that 57-man roster Matt Rule referred to on Saturday.
Okay.
If you're a part of that, I mean, you're a priority player. I mean, you're a guy that's probably going to be getting more money. But there's no question there's going to be layers of players on this roster. And he made the mention that on that bottom, say, 55 players on your team, the last 10, they're not necessarily going to be ranked at, they're going to be guys that fit your program, guys that you want around, that are going to be a part of your culture. He mentioned Roman Mangini as a player, in that category. So there's going to be players like that also make this 105 that maybe you wouldn't know who they are, but they're a big part of it. And they're not going to get the rev share necessarily, but they might still get something that helps them pay for their school. There's multiple pots of money, but at the end, it's still all together. It comes out to one pot, and you have to decide how you want to pay that. And obviously the scholarships are still part of it and everything else. But I think you'd get yourself in a lot of trouble if you just said, we're going to give every guy $100,000 plus, because then when it comes time to getting the Rocco Spindlers, the Dylan Raiolas, the bigger name transfer portal guys, you've got to have much more than that in position to get players like that.
Sean, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but you can handle these questions because you're so close to this stuff. How many $1 million players do you think are on Nebraska's roster right now?
Minimum of 3. I mean, Pritchett, Spindler, Raiola. I mean, I think those 3 are given.
Okay, that might be it. That might be it.
And Dane Key and McCullough, I don't know if they'd get to that point at their positions, but Waneri has to be knocking on the door.
Oh yeah.
You got to remember, he was a 5-star edge rusher, number 1 player in the country at one point, and only played 1 year at Missouri and redshirted. So he's got a high value because of his 4 years of eligibility. And Missouri had to pay him a lot of money, and he didn't leave. Let's put it this way: I don't think he left Missouri for a pay cut.
Right? No, probably not. Probably not.
So I would say when we forget about Waneri because he committed so early, but that's definitely a high ticket guy too in what they've added because of the position he plays. I mean, when you think about the money tied to these players, think about an NFL situation. Who gets the most money? The quarterback, the left tackle, and the edge rushers.
Pretty much right. I mean, then maybe corner. Would a corner be in that conversation a little bit? Lockdown guy?
Yeah, and I don't know if they have, let's just flashback. If Tommy Hill was a first rounder and you wanted to keep him, yeah, he'd be a highly paid guy. But I still think edge rusher, left tackle, quarterback are the 3 big ones. I mean, that's why, Dante Daldell, I think they had a fair amount allocated for him. And Kentucky just upset the apple cart and just needed a running back that bad that they were willing to overpay and give Dante Daldell an offer to leave Nebraska. So there's going to be some of that happens too. Just like in professional sports free agency, a team will come in and just completely throw off the market because they need that player or that position so badly.
Got it.
So by Sean Callahan. Sean, on Saturday, Matt Rule didn't give us an update on special teams coordinator, but on Monday during the show, we learned that Mike Eckler is going to come to Nebraska from Tennessee. I'm curious, how surprised are you that Nebraska could pry him away from a place he was doing well at and a playoff team at that this past season?
Well, on the surface, yeah, when you mention it like that, it is surprising, but Mike never signed his renewal. I mean, he let his contract run out, so there was no buyout tied to him. He obviously had the opportunity to re-sign, and Brent Hubbs told me that at volquest.com, but it held off. So he had his mind set on this opportunity. His daughter just got done playing volleyball at the University of Tennessee. He obviously has family still in the state of Nebraska. He's from Nebraska. So I think a lot of things just aligned for this, but it stayed quiet for a good month. I mean, I think that's the thing, with the coaches recruiting and everything going on. The information was kept pretty airtight until everybody got back off the road. And this position, as Matt Rule said on Saturday, is probably not a recruiting position. And to put that in context, you can only have 10 coaches on the road now. And of your 25, 30 on the field guys, you can only pick 10 of them, along with Matt Rule being the 11th. So this special teams coordinator job, at least as of right now, is not a guy on the road that would recruit. It's strictly kind of a behind the scenes coordinator role. and you won't be out, but you're going to be involved on campus when the recruits come. Like Dana Holgerson's not on the road recruiting right now. Glenn Thomas not on the road. Ed Foley was not on the road this year. So that's kind of the new normal where you'll see a Keith Williams on the road for Nebraska, and a Jamar Mosey is on the road instead of some of the other coaches. It just gives you a lot more, I think, flexibility with the special teams coordinator role. That's how Matt Rule, I think, is going to lay out the duties.
A stat and a question. A stat and a question. Tennessee this season, Sean, averaged 32.6 punt return yards per game, which led the SEC. In fact, only one other team in the SEC averaged even 20 punt return yards per game. Now, so it's kind of a loaded question. Eckler, the hire, do you expect that the special teams across the board do you expect immediate, significant, noticeable improvement in 2025?
Well, I'd hope so, just with the snapper and some of those things that they've shored up alone. I mean, I think a lot of the issues started with the snapper, and Matt Rule said that with the block kicks. But, yeah, there were protection issues and shield issues and alignment issues that you would hope that Mike Eckler is going to figure out. Now, I know we've been saying it was 10 block kicks. Andy Kendi told me from the website he pulled it was actually 11. So I don't know if it was 10 or 11 block kicks. But, yeah, that you can only go up from there. I think in the history of Nebraska football, there could never have been a year like this.
I don't think so, Sean. You've been covering it for 25 years, right?
I've never seen it in any form of football where there's been that many.
That's wonderful, Sean. That's wonderful.
Very good.
I mean, think about it. Like a block. I mean, we even saw like a block extra point return, which I think we determined the last time that happened was the 2011 Capital One Bowl against South Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened at Oklahoma.
Oklahoma,
In 2021, that happened in that game too. I want to say Piper kind of got blown up on a play, and they just came up the middle and just blocked one there too. But that's a rarity. You don't see extra points blocked in return for 2 after you score a touchdown, which is just a gut punch when you score 6 and you give up
touchdown.
2.
Yeah, it's the old 4-point touchdown. You don't want that. It's not ideal.
I mean, changes the whole sheet of a game at that point.
It does.
Sean, you've talked about this. We haven't talked about it though. The changes Rule made massive. He overhauled his coaching staff. I don't know that it's settled in with people yet. What's your interpretation, or how do you size up what Rule did with his coaching staff this offseason?
Yeah, I think we figured out of all the on-field people, there's only 4 that are in their original duties from a year ago. Barthel at running back, Glenn Thomas at quarterback, Raiola at O-line, and then Dvorak at linebacker coach.
Yeah.
Other than that, every single other person is either a new hire or has a new duty, including, I mean, it's like, to use a business term, it's like he wiped out his management staff and he brought in 3 new managers, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special teams coordinator. And he obviously kept some of the employees in the building, but new management. So I think it's a big statement. And then he brings in Phil Snow as well as another layer to the leadership team as a associate head coach, a former coordinator. So it is a complete overhaul. And I think it takes me back to 2 years ago when he came into Nebraska. There wasn't a lot of time. You get hired on Thanksgiving after Black Friday that weekend, and you've got to make like 100 hires of people, and you got to do it really, really quick. And that's hard to do. And I think when you come from another program in college football, it's easier to bring a lot of the people with you and just kind of go from there. Like Frost did that, obviously, and Signetti did that. You see that. But when you're starting from scratch and having to make all the hires, 1 to 100 on, with people that weren't with you because you weren't in college football that year, you're going to have some misses and things go wrong. And I think it shows maybe initially when Matt Rule came in, there wasn't a lot of time to do this, and he's had more time to analyze and he's made some changes.
Sean, always good stuff. Get some stretching in. Enjoy your workout, and we'll chat with you again next week at 8:00.
Yeah, by all means, get some stretching in.
It's 500-meter row benchmark day, so I need it. But I'm feeling well rested in this 8:00 hour coming on, and it's just like it's a whole new level of early break.
You sound fresh.
You sound fresh.
You sound fresh. Good job, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day.
HuskerOnline, Sean Callahan.